You're listening to the Breakthrough Investor in Commercial Real Estate Podcast. Brought to you by MVP Equity Group, where we learn from private equity experts, their mindset, and ways to achieve financial independence. Whether you're new to investing or a seasoned investor in the industry who needs new ideas for investing in multifamily, self-storage facilities, retail development, mixed use, or hotels, you're in the right place. We will share our own real-world experiences so you know exactly what it takes to be highly successful at investing passively or actively in commercial real estate opportunities. We'll uncover some tools, tips, and techniques to help you stand out in this highly competitive field. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. And if you want to learn more, visit us at mvpequitygroup.com. Here to challenge you to think outside the box is your host, Ernest Peralta.
Today, our guest is Kenny Wolfe. Thanks for being on the show, Kenny.
Thank you, Ernest. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Well, a little bit about Kenny. He's the founder of Wolfe Investments, which brings investors together to purchase apartment communities and helps them to build wealth and a never-ending income stream. He's been in multifamily real estate since 2010, where he co-founded Wolfe Investments in 2012. He's been involved in over $97 million worth of multifamily, commercial, and hard money loan real estate transactions throughout Texas, Colorado, Louisiana, Oklahoma, and Ohio. He's also written a book called Investing in the Dream: How to Acquire Multifamily Real Estate and to Attain Total Financial Freedom. Great title, by the way.
Thank you very much. I'm surprised it wasn't taken.
Right? I know, you would think. So, again, I'm grateful to have you here on the show to get to know you a little bit better myself and as well as our listeners. So let's dive into some of your expertise, shall we?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
All right. Awesome. As I mentioned, you've got your book. I actually took the opportunity to read it, so I know a little bit about you myself. But for our listeners, we could kind of tell your backstory a little bit. How did you get into real estate? I know you didn't start off in real estate. You were in another occupation or another industry. Do you mind kind of stepping through that and then telling us how you actually got into real estate?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So I started out in oil and gas, like every good Texan should. And then started out that I was in the accounting side. So I've only been on an oil rig one time, and I have the hard hat from that one visit. But other than that, I was in the office. So on the accounting side of that, worked my way up through a small company, made CFO at the age of 28, and on a spinoff company. They moved us out to Shreveport, Louisiana for that oil and gas gig. And then about 3 years into our 5-year contract with Chesapeake Energy, they were having money issues the first time. And so my wife and I kind of looked at each other like, we got to find a different industry to get into. I made some phone calls and talked to a family friend, and she was investing passively in multifamily. And so kind of fast forward, I went to a 2-day seminar, a few of them actually, kind of to test it out, see if it was something we wanted to do. And then, jumped in, was passive twice. And one was a value add deal, so your typical fixer upper. And the other was a yield play. So it was supposed to be a cash flow play, but anyways, that's a whole nother story. Ended up having to be, on that one, I actually ended up being voted in years later to go fix it as the sponsor. So, but use those two as a learning curve to jump off and syndicate our first deal at 76 units here in Dallas, Fort Worth. And I had never owned, other than our personal residence, a rental house in my life. So I went from 0 to 76. It's definitely doable. And I highly recommend skipping the 20 to 30 units for those that are out there. But, and that really just kind of snowballed into what we've done today. So I think the numbers you said were a little low, but that's okay. We move pretty fast around here. So we've done over 5,600 units. And I think our current assets under value about 285 million on there. Just kept on branching out.
Oh, that's great. To take a step back here at 28, reaching CFO, that's pretty impressive.
Well, yeah, thanks.
But real estate was calling you though.
It was, and it was, in oil and gas, it's everything has cycles, but nothing like oil and gas. It's feast or famine. Obviously there's cycles in real estate, but it's a lot more stable and steady. And I always wanted to be my own boss, be an entrepreneur. That really spoke to me early on, even in college. So And before that, actually, as a kid growing up, did some businesses as well. So something I've definitely wanted to do. But I think, working at a small company, whatever it is, you learn a lot as well. So I learned a lot in that small oil and gas company that kind of helps shape what we do up here today.
That's good. That's great. Yeah, I know there could be some transferable skills, especially if you came from industry and you bring it into real estate. So, you brought up something. You actually invested in Texas. You went from 0 to, what was it, 76 units right off the bat. What do you foresee? Think people should kind of focus in a sub-market for now?
I've always was one to think that, if you pigeonhole yourself too fine of parameters, you're not going to buy anything ever. For those, and you have to be willing to change with the market. So, we were buying B and C class assets for years here in Dallas, Fort Worth. Here in town now, we focus on A class and ground up development. So that's the way for us to work. We still buy here at home. And stay in the business side here. But the B and C, we're basically out. We may find one or two that are off market, but typically here in DFW anyways, we're there. But we own from Longview to El Paso in Texas. So we've got and everywhere in between, but just about. So we've got a lot of markets that we're in, which is nice because if you're in multiple markets, sometimes it's better just to sit and hold what you own. And some others, like, it's time to buy if you can make the numbers work and find a good deal.
Yeah, definitely. So you've been in the industry now for some time. What mistakes did you make as a new investor, and what did you learn from it?
I've been fortunate to have mentors in my life and coaches, and I don't know about fortunate, but I have been fortunate about that. But I specifically went out and found people that had operational experience in multifamily because I didn't have any, right? I can understand an income statement, a balance sheet all day long, right? That's what my accounting background. And that's very useful on the investment side in multifamily. But operations, like, I had no idea how to evict anybody and all that. And honestly, I still don't know how to evict anybody. Our managers take care of that for us. But so I let them do that. But that was a big thing, is just to be able to look to see what holes you're missing starting out. And even as you're going along too, and what you need to keep on improving and to fill those gaps especially to get started, So I didn't have the operational experience. I didn't know the best lenders to use, the GCs, all that was all brand new. So to go passive twice on a deal, a live deal, and actually both of them, I asked them, before I handed my big check, was that, this is my investment and my education. So, I planned on me asking quite a few questions and wanting to be on site if you let me, walk units and however else if you need help, just let me know. So I wanted to really do a deep dive into, how the actual operations work, who were the vendors they were using, did they like them or not, did they work out, things like that.
Yeah, no, that's very good. Do you think for those from wanting to get into syndication as an active investor, do you think it would be wise for them to maybe start off passively, or do you think they could just make that jump?
I've seen both. I did passively, one for educational purposes on the operations side. The second big piece of that on going passive is our second investment was in a Fannie Mae loan. And so that gave me Fannie Mae on our first syndication deal. I was able to go get a Fannie Mae loan, right out of the gate without bringing in any other kind of guarantor on that had that Fannie Mae experience. So that was really big, that we could just jump right into those non-recourse agency loans by doing that. So that was a big step up too, be able just to jump right into that. Otherwise, you're going to have to go to a bank loan. You don't get as good leverage. It can be harder to raise money from new folks if it is a recourse loan, because they may not understand that they're really not liable, but they want to make sure. So there's a lot of pieces to it that I think makes sense to be passive first, especially because you're dealing with a lot of people's other people's money, right? Mm-hmm. So to be a good steward, you really need to know what you're doing. And so I think that's the best way to go. I've seen people jump right in. But typically they start out with small deals, like 12, 20, 30 unit deals. Mm-hmm. And I tell folks, like, you don't have to start there. So why would you? Those 20 and 30 unit deals are so much work. and you're kind of in no man's land. So, you're in the, I've got a buddy right now. He did that. He bought a 23 unit deal in Cleveland. He's trying to sell it now, but the folks he's selling it, but now, he's buying 100, 200 unit deals. So he's much more sophisticated. Well, he's having to deal with unsophisticated first time buyers trying to buy this 23 unit deal. And I think he's been through two people, hard money, 20, 30K each time. So he's making this a business of newbies that are trying to buy this deal, but they're not sophisticated enough to buy it. So if you're buying that 20, 30 unit deal, there's really two good days in your life on that deal is when you buy it, when you sell it. It's kind of like a boat.
Kind of like a boat. I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
And it takes the, same amount of work to put together a 30 unit deal versus, larger units like 100 plus.
Yeah, exactly. But it all comes down to how much can you raise, right? That's your limiting factor. So that's something you got to sit down and just kind of, be honest with yourself. How much can I really raise? How much do you think you can? And on paper, make sure that's double, especially your first deal, double of what you think you can raise, or double of what you need to raise. I'm sorry, on there, because your first time, a lot of folks are going to flake out on you.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You'll have a lot of takers at first, but they tend to dwindle off over time. So yeah, kind of the same scenario that we utilize too for our methodology. So if you could just highlight some of the benefits of investing in syndication as a passive investor, could you highlight some of those?
Yeah, sure. So we're the ones that have to worry about the evictions and rent collections and fixing toilets. So that's a big deal. We hear I've had 2 calls this week from new investors that they've reached, one was 7 single family units. And then the other was 10. And they were like, I just can't do it anymore. I can't, it's such a time intensive deal. So they were looking to get to be a passive investor as well. So you kind of get about the same returns, if not better, on some of our transactions because they're valued differently. Less so on the comps and more on the net operating income, where you can have more control of your own destiny. So we're big about that here. Obviously you get cash flow, you get principal pay down as well as we pay down the loans. And then appreciation is pretty big as well. And then we talk about the 4th wealth building blocks. I've got a good YouTube video out there on that. But the 4th one we talk about is the appreciation. The tax shield, the tax benefits, right? So right now we get a lot of cost segregation, bonus depreciation on our multifamily assets. So typically the investors get a write-off 50% or higher on their investment that year, and it can offset other investment income.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially for those that are maybe in a different tax bracket, if you will, and they want to bring that down a little bit. So what's been the hardest part as far as the syndication business for you?
Oh man, it really, it's just, you got to stay nimble. I'd say, a lot of some colleagues of mine, they were stuck on that B and C value add Dallas Fort Worth, so they didn't grow as fast. Right. And so, up here, our goal is to reach $1 billion of assets under management by 2029. So we can't sit still and wait for that B and C value added Dallas Fort Worth to come back to reality. So you have to be nimble. You got to be able to go to different markets and be able to understand them very quickly. Most of them you can. It takes 2 days to figure out a market, at least on a high level, except for Houston. There's no figuring out Houston unless you live there because it's so block to block in that massive city. Other than that, it's usually a 2-3 day process on figuring out where you want to buy in a city and just, doing your homework. And again, just staying nimble because that's the market changes and you've got to be able to change with the market and still buy, intelligent investments. So be flexible.
Yeah, good advice. That's really good. What are the best resources that have helped you along the way during your journey?
It's really talking to folks that have, been where we want to go. And vendors that have been in the business 30 years. I mean, it's, I'm big on that, talking to folks that have been in this game a long time, and that have been successful and seen what works, what doesn't work. So that's pretty big time, be able to rely on good solid advice when you can.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you've got a lot of experience in the industry and done your homework. Do you still have a mentor right now?
Not actively. I've
Yeah.
got some ones that I chase. So there's a guy in town. He's much bigger than us, and so I kind of look at him as the rabbit to chase on how he sets up his company and all that. I've met him a few times, but nothing formal. And then just I'm big on reading business biographies. That's my favorite genre. So call me a nerd or whatever, but that's my favorite. So I read those often, and not just in real estate, other folks that have built big organizations and done well on the investment side.
I'm a nerd that way too. So I love reading biography of people that accomplished a lot of different things in life. And it's just remarkable.
All right, good.
So what projects are you guys currently working on now?
So we started over 10 years ago buying apartments here, here in Dallas Fort Worth. We still buy existing multifamily. And we are still buying those. We just bought a D class in Wichita Falls, Texas, which not many people will admit they bought a D class, but we do. We proudly say it. It was 29 a door, horrible property. I mean, but the location though, it's right next to an elementary school. And then it backs onto, and to the east are some fairly nice single family homes as well. So we're going to be the heroes of Wichita Falls by cleaning that up. New sheriff in town. And then like 10 days later, we bought an A+ class in downtown Dallas. So we're very kind of agnostic on what types of properties. We just know how to operate them differently, right? So the D class is a huge value add. We're putting in 35 a door into the rehab. So our basis will be 65, but we only paid 20 on a door for it, right? So that'll be a huge turnaround project. And then this A+ in downtown Dallas, it was just, in Dallas right now, the B and C class are going for 5.5 to, well, really less than a 6 cap, right? The B and C. Well, we're buying A class at 5.5. So I'd rather buy the A at the same cap rate. Obviously we need to get some better leverage on that to still have them perform like a B and C on the return side. And we've kind of figured that out now with, now we're a approved HUD borrower. So we get that 35-year amortization. And usually HUD beats the other agencies by 3/4 of a point on interest rate. So by getting those, and then also being able to either introduce an upgrade unit on an A class, which we did. We've done that well on a couple properties now, and then be able to operate them a little bit tighter than other kind of A class operators.
Yeah. Two ends of the spectrum there, a class D and a class A. But like you said, you've got to be pretty nimble. So you've probably done your due diligence on that D class property. So Wichita Falls, they'll be pretty happy once you guys renovate that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So speaking of which, what trends do you foresee this year and next year for multifamily or just commercial investing in general?
I mean, I'd almost start at like hard assets, right? So if you're an investor, hopefully everybody had a lot of fun buying stuff March through June of 2020 on the public stock, public exchanges, stocks, bonds, preferred shares. I know we cleaned up on my side. So we bought a lot of that stuff but then basically after that, we stopped buying paper assets. The fun had been had, the market came back quickly. We made some quick profits there. So now going forward with all the stimulus that's been pumped into this economy, inflation is going to be absolutely monstrous. And at the same time, I believe we're going to have low interest rates for a while because all that was financed. So anyway, I think we're going to have low interest rates for a while. So I think the inflation is going to be very, very strong. Even if they raise rates a little bit, it's still going to be it's going to be untamable as much as they pumped into this economy. So I think hard assets are going to be the best place to be for the next probably 3 to 7 years, however long the run is. And I focus on cash flowing assets, cash flowing hard assets, so we're going to get that boost from the inflation, that value, but at the same time, we're having somebody else pay down our loan for us and we're getting cash flow off the property as well. So those are the properties those are the assets that obviously it's what we do up here, but that's, we're buying, that's pretty much the sole thing we're buying or that I'm investing in now. So I think real estate's got a long way to go. Rents are going to go up because of that inflation. And also you've got just historically low interest rates. So borrow as much as you can. Lenders are out there. They're lending like crazy. So you got to use it while you can.
Yeah, exactly. So one thing I wanted to ask you is, with your portfolio of assets that you guys own and manage, are you guys strictly multifamily, or are you guys diversified into other asset classes as well?
Yes, about 3 years ago, we started to kind of round out what offerings we do. So we, like I said, we still do the existing multifamily. Almost 4 years ago, we bought our first dollar store, so our first Family Dollar. So we do that. We're on our third fund now on those. So we own 20 stores, 18 of those are dollar stores, one Advanced Auto Parts, and one Walgreens as well. So we buy those mostly for boring cash flow. So, those hit about 8 to 10% cash on cash return annually, but they're so stable that we pay out monthly to investors on those. And then about the same time, I wanted something polar opposite of boring cash flow. And so there's no better way to do that than development. So I went out and bought some townhome lots myself, developed them to build out the team and figure out how it actually works. And then now we're working on a whole bunch of projects, both ground up development. We've got one just about to break ground here in Dallas, Fort Worth, and then we've got another up in Cleveland, next to Cleveland Clinic, that we're about to do as well. And then also in that development arm, we bought the Rockefeller building in August in downtown Cleveland. It's a historic office building, really cool if you're into history, which I am. Anyway, so that's currently an office building that we'll convert to multifamily. And we probably have about 5 more of those office to multifamily projects coming right behind it.
Wow, that's impressive. So you guys actually put under management the Rockefeller building. That's nice. I've seen that building before. Yeah.
Oh, it's cool. It's got their name on the top.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's pretty amazing. Now, what work habits do you swear by, and the secrets, to your success?
I think it's, like every entrepreneur, you have to work hard. You have to enjoy what you do, because it is a lot of work. At the same time, you have to be smart enough to take yourself out of some of the day-to-day, so you can focus on the bigger picture items and what really kind of brings value to your investors, right? So it's that balancing act of being able to hire correctly and get folks on your team that can really help you take it to the next level. So really that's really the secret sauce, and it's not much of a secret, but hire right, make sure that you're, as an entrepreneur and of the CEO of the company, you're focusing on what you should focus on. So tasks that kind of bog you down from the growth and the making sure your current holdings are performing well and doing well on that side of it too. You've got to get the right teammates in to help you out.
Yeah, that's pretty key. So what is one common myth about being a real estate investor that you would like to debunk?
I've been to a few of these gurus out there. They're 2-3 day events, and they all like, oh, it's so easy. It's passive income, and it is passive if you're true passive. But a lot of the times they talk about, retirement in 3 to 5 years, and it's something along those lines, and that, it's and they call it retirement. Well, not really. I mean, it is if you're a passive, but if you're an active investor like me or a syndicator, it's definitely a full-time job. And it's got to be, because you're dealing with so much other people's money. Right now we've got, I think, 65 million of equity that we've currently on our assets that we've raised and that's deployed. So, we have to be highly, in tune and make sure we're managing those funds correctly. So that's not, kind of typically not what they show on those 2 to 3 day events when they trying to help you sign up. So.
Yeah, I know. Quick money, but this is a long-term play. So
yeah.
If you've ever been in real estate, or it's not a get quick, it's definitely a long-term thing. So one thing I wanted to ask you is, where can our listeners connect with you?
Sure. Yeah. So the best place to find us is on our website. So wolfe-investments.com. I also put out a weekly free educational video on our YouTube channel. So if you type in Kenny Wolfe there on the YouTube channel, it'll come right up. And then also we started our MFIN conferences again. And because we're in Texas, we got to jump early like we should or did. So we had our first one again in person, and we did it responsibly. But 230 people showed up to that event, but we had 150 on the wait list.
Wow.
So it would have been a 400-person event like we had it before pre-COVID. But put those on, 3 times a year. We had the one end of February in Houston that went well. So we're looking at a July 24th big conference there in Florida, in Miami. So that'll be announced here in a little bit. But again, connect with us on Facebook, social media. We're there as well. And we'd love to see you in person whenever everybody's ready for that. So
Great. That's awesome. And in Miami too. That should be a great in-person meetup, Leah. It's going to be a lot of people's first in-person post-COVID.
Exactly right. Everybody's ready for it. I've got a lot of folks that say they're ready for it. So.
Yeah. Tell me about it. So last question. So this is basically an action. What actionable advice have you learned would be an important action or a pattern of behavior that a new real estate investor should take as their next step towards their goals?
Figure out where you want to end up. So when I talk to new investors, that are kind of floundering around, they don't know where to go. I was like, well, to get anywhere, you got to figure out where you want to go first, right? So sit down. Do you want to be collecting passive checks on the beach? If you do, or, collecting money and just hanging on the beach, well, then active investing is not for you. But if you're a little bit crazy and love real estate, and want to kind of grow a business, then being an active syndicator may be for you as well. So there's, but you can't figure out where to get started if you don't know where to go, right? So think about that, have a real kind of sit down, honest time with yourself to figure out what you really want in life. And then from there, just, work backwards and to see what path you need to go to, and how quickly do you want to retire if you're going to go the passive route. So, and that'll dictate, do you need cash flow today, or do you need more appreciation to get there in your time frame? And then an active investor, you got to look at what steps are what pieces of the puzzle that what a syndicator what a current syndicator has, the successful one, what they have and what you're missing. So if you don't have net worth, if you don't have cash, if you don't have experience, those are things that you have to go figure out how to get those.
Yeah, definitely. Great advice. Kenny, really appreciate it. There's a lot of value, in what you said for those that are just starting to get into real estate or those even that are very hesitant and you don't know what to do at this point. So, take that information and hopefully it'll be beneficial for you. And Kenny, I just want to thank you so much for being on our show. And I just want to iterate, guys, go ahead and pick up his book when you get a chance. It's a great read. Definitely something that you can, probably finish in a couple of days, but there's a lot of good tidbits of information there for you. And so, Kenny, you've got a lot of things going on for you and your team this year. Very high goals, too, that you want to achieve in the next couple of years. So good luck in that. And I really hope the best for you as well.
All right. Thank you, Ernest. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, everyone, for joining. And until the next time, we'll talk to you soon. Thank you. Thanks for listening to the Breakthrough Investor in Commercial Real Estate podcast. If you like what you heard and you found value in this episode, we would really appreciate if you would give us a rating and a review. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. For those of you that are interested in investing passively in these types of deals in solid cash flowing commercial real estate throughout Arizona and Texas, as well as Idaho and Colorado, then visit us at mvpequitygroup.com. Fill out the investor interest form. That's mvpequitygroup.com. If you close on a multifamily deal or any other type of commercial property in the past 12 months and you want to be on this podcast, then send us an email on our Contact Us page for details. Thanks.